Guideline and Alternative Assessment. So a quick housekeeping announcement. This session will be recorded by EDHEC. Kindly do not click the record button. The recorded session will be shared with everyone after the webinar. Slides will be shared after the webinar. Okay, so please mute your microphone during the webinar. If you have any questions to ask, unmute your mic and mute again after you are done. You may also post your questions in the Q&A chat box on your right screen. If you think of questions for the speakers at any point, just type it in there and we will either pose it to our speakers at that time or hold it for the Q&A slot at the end of the webinar. And this guideline and special webinar are brought to you by EDHEC with support of Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and International, and QMAC, ASPC, AASC, and Chitra. So thank you so much for being here today. And I hope that you will benefit from today's online teaching and learning and alternative assessment guideline. So I would like to give credit to our Director, Associate Professor Dr. Faradina Yusuf, for preparing the slides that we are doing today. My name is Safiah Omar, and I'm the Head of Unit of Leadership and Wellbeing, and I'll be the speaker for today. Actually, this guideline, what we do is that we have conducted many series since Monday, beginning from Dr. Farah. And then we have sessions with Dr. Zahid on Tuesday. Yesterday, we have sessions with Dr. Amira. And myself is actually today. And tomorrow, we're going to have another sessions with Dr. Azza. But for this guideline, we're going to cover only the basic for TNL as well as the alternative assessment. But if you have any further inquiries on the e-learning regarding spectrums or regarding Microsoft Teams and many more, what you're going to do is that you can sign up for the e-learning clinic that we are going to host on 9th of October with Dr. Muhammad Yazid, or you can go for Dr. Donnie Adams on the 23rd of October, or you can go to our favorite Dr. Zahiruddin on the 30th of October. So book your slot very, very fast because sometimes they might get full very, very soon. So I think the session will be given half an hour for every academicians. So go and book your seat fast. All right. At the end of these sessions, we really hope to receive your feedback. Okay, because the feedback is very important for us to improve our content and to serve you better. The link will be given at the chat room later. So please, and just let us know your comments and your reactions for this webinar. Let me start with what we're going to have to do today. Basically, today is all about the online teaching and learning guideline, which is available from umacademic.um.edu.my/announcement, or you can go to our very own website, edx.um.edu.my, and you just go and click on the Teach Online guideline, and you can just click on the books and other resources. So you may find this online teaching and learning guideline dated 28th of September 2020. All right. For this guideline, there are three key areas that we are going to basically cover, which is the design, delivery, and assessment. So let's take a look at what we actually meant by the three. So the three aspects of online TNL, the first one is when you talk about the designing, you talk about constructive alignment. Yeah, constructive alignment is when you talk about how you're going to align your intended learning outcomes with the activities that you have and the assessment. And then we're going to take a look at the student learning time, the SLT, and then the coursework load. Next, we're going to cover and discuss on the delivery. Okay, the delivery of your teaching and learning aspects, which is whether you're going to do synchronous or asynchronous. And we're also going to take a look at the interactive or the presence in terms of social teaching and cognitive. And the most important thing is actually that we're going to discuss also is the part for the assessment, right? Because we have to talk about what does it mean by formative, what does it mean by summative, and why are we using alternative assessments? Okay, because the word is actually quite like a like an in thing for now, ever since the MCO happened back in March. So the alternative assessment is like something that we really want to know what it's all about and how are we going to implement that. So let's take a look at the first part, which is the design. Okay, let's discuss about the constructive alignment. Now, in every courses that we had, okay, I think we have to take a look at these three very, very important things in our course. The first thing is like how are we align our intended learning outcomes, our learning activities, and our assessment and feedback at the end of the day. So we start with the first one, which is the program learning outcome. And this usually would be set at the faculty level, at the program level. So, for example, you can take a look at each program, like Bachelor of Accountancy, Bachelor of Engineering, Bachelor of Science or something. So most of them, all of them will start with the PLO. So this is for the program. And then for each courses, you will have course learning outcome. So in every course, normally you will have about 4 to 5 learning outcomes, right? And each learning outcomes must be aligned with the learning activities that you want to plan to do for your students. So the CLO is actually what can students do at the end of the course? What do you want them to achieve at the end of the course? So let's, for example, we take this one example from, I think this is School of Engineering or something, but it talks about apply theory of air traffic management to develop solutions for practical ATM problems. So that's what the students should achieve at the end of the course. Now, what kind of activities that we can actually do for that particular CLO to be achieved, right? Now, how are we going to do that? So for this CLO, particularly this lecturer, we use computer-based simulations, all right, in order for the students to experience, to apply the theory, so that they be able to come up with the solutions for for any problems that they have at the simulation games. At the same time, we can also do online group work, whichever that are actually related to that practical ATM problems. Okay, then once you have that activities, then you have to think about how are you going to have the kind of assessment, right, that will be able to measure the achievement of the CLO. So for example, for this course used a laboratory report. So when they use computer-based simulations, when they have done their the activities on that, so they have to produce a report. And the report can actually be what we call it. The report can actually be a long kind of a portfolio collections, or sometimes they would do like a journal. Journal collections for the students to actually write out what do they learn, or maybe it could be a self-reflections. So whichever that you choose, you just have to make sure that they actually measure what you're supposed to measure. Okay, so that's the first part in terms of constructive element. So if you go to your form, and I have to give credit, we have to give credit to QMAC for giving us this slide. So you go to your form for UMPT01 MQF-BR003, the alignment of learning outcomes to assessment. Now, I think you are familiar with this form because every semester you have to complete this, right? Now, let's take a look at the area of course learning outcomes, CLO. Number one, there would be no changes should be made to the CLO. You cannot change, even though you convert these classes from physical to online. There is you don't have the authority to actually change your CLO unless you go through the curriculum review, all right, and you got some the approvals, then you can do that. But for this particular converting the physical class to online, you can't do that, right? And then you can see that there is a PLO, all right, whichever PLO that measure this program, and then you can see that there is a strategy, learning strategies. Okay, so you can take a look at how they map, right? How this lecture map the constructive alignment that we just discussed just now. So take a look at the learning outcomes. So you can see that here it says that discuss the roots of global environmental crisis from several different perspectives. All right, so you talk about discussions. So what they do in learning strategies, you can see that the first one, it here, is that viewing online notes for 1 week, online forum for 1 week, lecture for 4 weeks, tutorial for 4 weeks. But this is because it's last semester, and it says that TNL activities are all completed before MCO because last semester we have 5 weeks physical classes, right? But now we have 100% online classes. So you need to be able to, to be able to put all the activities that actually will be, make the students able to get the CL, to achieve the CLO at the end of the day. So, and then you take a look at the method of assessment and assessment of weightage. Look, the assessment, so the weightage assessment cannot be changed actually, right? We need some approval from Senate if you want to change that. So you need to be, so you need to know how to allocate the marks. For example, if let's say the continuous assessment is 60% and the final exam is 40%, you can't change that. So you have to put continuous assessment at 60%. You have to keep that, right? And for this for this course that we're looking at this presentation, you can see that it break up, already the test 10%, in class quiz 10%, and then the final exam. So you put that take home exam 20%. Take home exam is not like our original traditional exam. So it's just something like maybe perhaps like an assignment, questions or case study that the students have to do in a period of times that be given by the lecturers. All right. At the end of the day, whatever that you do, I think that the most important thing is you have to know that Spectrum is our official learning platform. And in every courses, we have this blended status. You have to make sure that you use, you have to make sure that the course receive the blended status and the color is green and not red. Yeah. So there are minimum requirements for that. For example, if you see here, we need at least 8 resources. We have to have at least 3 activities and 2 assessment. In Spectrum, assessment means you can do quiz, you can do assignment submission, and then resources is like when you upload your teaching materials and so on. And activities like when you do group choice, when you do some, for example, you ask them to upload certain materials as well. The students also can upload material on Spectrum, and then that would be considered as activities, or maybe perhaps a forum or chat. I know that there's a lot of sometimes I think myself also, because when I do online teaching, sometimes I don't want to use Spectrum as my main, but what I do is that's my official, but my main platform is Facebook, because I think Facebook is easier for me to reach my students. So what I do a Facebook group, and I put a lot of materials there. All right. But what I do is that after I done my all my activities, I will definitely do a screenshot, or I would do some embedded page. Okay. For example, if I want them, I would do some embedded page at the Spectrum, so that the students can actually go to the Spectrum page and then they will look at it. So then you can see that your blended status will be achieved. Is there any questions from the participant? Because I can hear that there's some sound. Okay. No? All right. Thank you so much. Okay, but if you have any question, you can unmute your mic and ask me, and I'll try to answer you. Okay. All right. So this official learning platform that we have, so we have 3 actually. One is Spectrum. Number 2, we have MS Teams, Microsoft Teams. And number 3 is we have Google Meet, because we have official account and so on. But I would rather use Microsoft Teams, because Teams, we can create the group for our students, and then I can actually do everything, the assignment submissions, the grouping for their presentations, and many activities, so I can do that from there. And in fact, if I want to do what we call it, if I want to use Padlet, if I want to use Quizlet, if I want to use Kahoot and everything, normally what I do is that I will put a screenshot, I will put an embedded page on Spectrum as well. So that Spectrum is my official, so everything is like recorded there, even though I use many other platforms. Now, the next things that we have to discuss here is that the student learning time. This is in your form number 4, okay? And you can refer back to our guideline on, at page 2. So you can see that we want to highlight that the high percentage of student learning time shall be allocated for self-learning, because now they are studying at their home, so a lot of activities has to be allocated more in the self-learning rather than the centered learning. Extra time should be designated for non-face-to-face activities so that we can ensure the CLOs are achieved. And all changes to the SLT must be reflected in the updated student learning time at our Form 4. And this is to assist that in order for us to ensure at least 70 to 80% of our planned activities have been conducted. So if you remember our form, this form, okay, this is the form. So you can remember the activities that we suggested, okay, that we plan, and then you have to map with your SLT form, the borang 4, yeah, we call it the borang 4. So there is a time, right? The non-face-to-face time, and then there is face-to-face time. No, we don't have face-to-face time anymore. We have face-to-face time for the synchronous. Okay, don't worry about that. And then so you have to plan for all. And then what we encourage you is actually to put more percentage for the self-learning. This, you can get this info from page 13 to 14. All right. When it talks about how are you going to take a look at the student preparation time, especially when you want to fill in your form number 4. So you can have this, for example, if you take a look at here, viewing uploaded on screen material for PowerPoint slides. For example, you uploaded your teaching notes on Spectrum. Okay, so this is the calculation time. So each screen will be calculated as 5 minutes. For example, if you have 18 slides, so 18 slides times 5 minutes, there will be 1.5 hours. So that would be on the activity time. And then you have the student preparation time. So the student preparation time, so from 1.5 hour, what you're going to do is that you have to multiply by 1. Okay, if the learning material is not so complicated, or if you think that the learning material is too complicated, a lot of things to be digested, so you can times 2. So that would be 3 hours for the preparation time. Okay, and that goes for the media-based activities. Other than that, and then the online quiz test, for example, when you have 1 hour quiz, you can multiply the preparation by 3 to 4 hours. So you have to take a look at your credit, your course credit. You have to take a look at the complications. I mean, how complicated is the learning, and then you will see whether you want to times with 3 or 4. All right, you can get all this information from the guideline, page 13 to 14. All right, the coursework load. Okay, when we talk about designing the activities or assignments that we want to give to our students, this is something that we really have to take a look at, right? How many courses that the students actually have taken at one time, in one semester? So assume that this is Jasmine. Okay, I'm just assume that the name of the student is Jasmine. So if you take a look at Jasmine's course right now, take a look at her schedule from Monday to Friday. How many courses actually that she's taking right now? What do you think? If you take a look at the color, there are about 5 courses, right? So now, there's 5 courses, and then you can take a look at the schedule from Monday to Friday. The only day that she can breathe for a while is actually on Wednesday, because after 12 p.m. she will not have any other classes, right? So, but the rest of the day she'll finish at 4. And normally, when you start your day learning from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., sometimes your brain would be quite exhausted. So sometimes after your classes, you won't have, you need some rest, before you can actually get to do your homework or your assignment and so on. So mind you that sometimes what we have to do is that we have to think about, we do not want to burden the students with too many assignments or assignments that uh, required too many readings or something. You try to balance. For example, you have 3 assignments, right? So maybe one required reading or some research to do. Another 2 could be something that is more simple. Because you see, I've tried to calculate it myself actually. For my own course, I have 3, let's say I have 2 continuous assessment, and then I have 2 summative assessment. So that would be 4 assignment. So can you imagine if this student is taking 5 courses, let's say average, you have 4 kind of different assignment. So 5 times 4, you already have 20 types of different assignment for one semester. So sometimes it is quite a burden for them, and we actually do receive a feedback, some feedbacks from the students talking about this online learning, especially where they said that there are just too many work that they have to do, too many assignment, uh, especially on the asynchronous activities, which make them felt like they're like they call it drown with the assignment. So sometimes we have to take a look at that issue as well. Okay, I have some questions. Okay, so I'm just gonna address some that I can. Can we have a copy presentation? Yes, we will do that. All right. You're not sound stupid. Don't worry, Muhammad Irshadul. And then this session will be recorded. Okay, right. Good morning. For assessment, if you use MS Teams for assessment, how would Spectrum recognize it as part of assessment in order to achieve cost blended status? Um, how do you I'm not sure about how to do how you're going to do this, but in cost blended status, right, to achieve that, if we take a look at this part, you only need 2 kind of assessments. So if you do quiz or if you do some assignment submission, you already achieve the blended status. So you can do your uh, standard assessment in MS Teams, does not matter, right? So whatever that you want to do on MS Teams, you just have to make sure that you sit on Spectrum or do something so that you already achieve that status. Our deaf student can't see the video or face of interpreter when they actually do screen sharing. That's limitation of MS Teams. I see. Let's revise on this. Okay, for these questions, right now, Dr. IDB, uh, okay, I may not be able to answer that yet, but I would like to have because we have something going on here. We need about 2 minutes, 2 minutes break. Okay, we need 2 minutes break, and I will continue with my session um, after 2 minutes. All right, thank you so much. Just for a while. Okay, I'm back. Sorry for the interruptions. Actually, I have to move to another location. I have to move to another location due to the sound. I think some of you have actually said there's a car sound, some motorbike sounds, and something like that. So I have to move to. Yeah. Sheena said that she can't hear me because of the noise. Yep. All right. So yeah. So I've moved into another room. So I hope that you won't see the noise anymore. Now you can only hear my voice. So do tell me again, do let me know if you have any difficulties, like to hear me, or you can't see the slides or something like that. Yeah. All right. Thanks. Thank you so much. So where are we just now? Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can't burden this. Okay, so get back to the questions from Dr. Adibir Rahman. You talk about the deaf students. We are discussing with the management team right now and see what are the solutions for that. We will discuss with Dr. Zahir and whoever that actually more have the subject matter experts for this kind of online learning. Yeah, and we will get back to you soon, inshallah. All right. So the coursework load, please ensure that the number and complexity of tasks given commensurate with the course credit load and student learning time. For example, if you have a 4 credit hours versus 3 credit hours, so if you take a look at the 4 credit hours, there will be more activities that you want to emphasize on. But if you have 3 credit hours, so it should be lesser. Yeah. So you need to be able to calculate. So you refer back to this, all right? Refer back to this. Page, and then you can take a look at, and you can actually properly plan how long would be, the students can actually spend time for each activity that you actually set for them. Let's take a look at the second part of the topic today, which is the delivery. So delivery, you have 2 types. Yeah, I think a lot of, most of you, maybe all of you, already aware of what is synchronous versus asynchronous. So I'm just going to do a brief one, right? So synchronous is when you do it in real time. So this is the part where you do your online lecture through MS Teams, okay? When you do through Google Meet, or when you do it through Zoom, for example. But there's also real time, or we call it synchronous, when you go for low bandwidth, because not all students are actually having the good access to internet. Sometimes you can also use WhatsApp. Okay, so you are there, perhaps, or Telegram. Okay, all the students are there, or Facebook group. So you are there to give consultations. So perhaps you give them some activities for the first half an hour, and then you let them do their work, and then you come back and discuss. So you'll be there the entire time. So that's the real time synchronous. What we suggest is that for every semester, okay, we want you to do on minimum at least 3 synchronous. So we suggest for you to do in the beginning, in the middle, and before end of the semester. Right? But there's no maximum number, but we do not encourage you to do too much of the synchronous, because what the feedback that we receive from students, because some of them, they do not have enough data. So when they have to be online for, like, for example, 2 hours classes, like I said just now, right? If they have 5 courses, 5 times 3, so they have to be online. They have to they have to use the data for 15 hours just for the learning. So sometimes it's very unfortunate for them. Sometimes they couldn't actually access to the internet, or they have very limited. So what we do, I suggest, is that sometimes, even when I do the synchronous, sometimes what I do is that I do first half an hour lecture. Okay, let's say my 2 hours class, half an hour lecture, and then I give them activity to do for about 1 hour, maybe perhaps a discussion through Padlet, so everybody will write there, or Dropbox paper, or Facebook group, or something like that, a discussion. And then once they have discussed among themselves, for example, if I want them to present their findings, so maybe I will ask them to come back to Microsoft Teams at the last half an hour. So there will be half an hour introductions, 1 hour activities. When they do the activities, they can actually switch off their Microsoft Teams. They can leave the Microsoft. They don't have to on their videos or whatever. And then the final half an hour is when they come back. So that would actually would reduce the amount of data that they have to use for the study purpose. Okay. And then for synchronous, you can also use live class and guest lectures. I did that. What I do is that when I have guest lecture, because they cannot come to campus, or that time it was MCO, nobody can actually get up from their house. So what we do is that I called the guest lecture to do it from her house, and then and everything worked just fine. Okay. There's no maximum lecturers are advised to consider all factors, including suitability and nature of the course, the needs of the students, and student access to the sessions, etc. So maybe you can have a little bit, because you have 14 weeks, right? You can have a bit of maybe 2-3 weeks. You have synchronous, and then you can actually lower down. Okay, perhaps you have Microsoft Team, and maybe 1 week you're going to do, for example, the low bandwidth, use the Facebook group or the WhatsApp part, or Telegram and so on. So try to blend the learning activities that you have. Next is actually the asynchronous. Asynchronous is when you don't do it not in the real time. You just give them, you upload some materials on Spectrum or in whichever platform that you use. So for each week, it is recommended that you have at least one learning materials, one learning activities, and one learning assessment. For example, you have, let's say you want to teach topic 5. Okay, topic 5 is actually perhaps you talk about the average best costing, for example, ABC. I mean, if you're in accounting, or in marketing, you talk about branding, corporate branding, for example. So that would be your topic. So the learning activities, perhaps you can ask them to create or to do a case study about something, and then the assessment is that when you actually ask them to submit some assignment or a write-up, maybe maybe half a page of write-up or something like that, so that you don't actually burden them with too many activities each week. And then we can do also the pre-recorded. So I think this is something that very interesting. Screencasting is when you do, when you use your laptop or your desktop. So when you use a whiteboard, but electronic whiteboard and so on, and then you write certain formula, okay, and then you use Loom, for example, so that you can capture everything that you do. If you open your words, if you open your Excel, for example, because sometimes you want to teach the students how to use Excel, so you have to, you record the screencasting for your Excel, and then you put the formula and so on. Next, we also have slide casting, narrated slides. This is when you use PowerPoint, and then you just there's a part where you can actually record your video as well as your voice. So that also can be done. And also another thing is that MOOC, M-O-C, Massive Open Online Courses. So if you go through any free MOOC platform, and if you find that there is certain courses that are actually related to the topic area that that will benefit your students, you can also refer them to watch that MOOC. Or to take part of that MOOC, as one part of your asynchronous learning part. So more information is in that in our guideline from page 3 to 5. Okay, let's take a look at the assessment. This is the part when we always think about what can we do when it comes to assessment. So what is the difference between formative and summative? Okay, we will discuss that later, but I want you to see the kinds of assessments that we have. There are 5 dimensions. Yeah, 5 dimensions for you to assess your students. Number 1, self-assessment. All right. Number 2, peer assessment, which means that the first one is when the students assess themselves. Okay, number 2 is when the student assess. Okay, number 2, when the student assess their peers, okay, their friends. Number 3, group-based assessment. Number 4, when you do a performance-based assessment based on the performance or based on the projects that they do. And then number 5 is portfolio-based assessment. Right. So there are 5 dimensions with many methods down here, you can see. So you can do case study, peer review, skills demonstrations, and so on. Sometimes the good part about the alternative assessment, right, is that when you can actually ask the students to do a poster, all right, so that they can see like whether they understand. Or you can ask them to do a mind map to see whether they actually understand the whole process of the subject. For example, what I teach is actually I taught strategic management for the undergraduate students. So sometimes what I do is that I ask them to do a mind map so that they'll be, like how does the strategy started? and what are the elements that they need to know before they can actually decide on the directions for the company. So they will actually draw everything, like the external audit, the internal audit, and every so on. So that will be one of the assessments that you can actually ask the students to do. Report, I think everybody knows that. Short video. Okay, another thing that I ask my students to do is that when I talk about the strategy is that I ask them to do a video. But this I have done even before the MCO, even before our online teaching. But because sometimes when they record the video, they will be like, like a very lengthy video, and it's very hard for you to access. So what you're going to do is that limit the time. So when I ask them to do a short video, it means really, really short. I ask them to record what did they do. I asked them to record about strategic directions for a company, but I asked them to only talk about it within 3 minutes. So I said that not more than 3 minutes. The video must not exceed 3 minutes. If they exceed 3 minutes, marks will be deducted. So, it's not that I want to punish them, but it's actually I just want to tell them that it's very, very serious, that you cannot exceed 3 minutes. So sometimes they will be questioned like, can we exceed 5 seconds, like 3:05 or something like that? I mean, they always do that, but I said no. So you strict with that so that when you want to assess, the video that actually they uploaded, it will be easier for you. Otherwise, you have to watch entire 20 minutes of a video for one group. Sometimes that will be, because the content will be very, very messy. So it's better to just shorten the time and be strict about it. Why we have to conduct assessment for the students so that they know how well they are doing in the learning process. Okay, because it's not just about they get a grade, at the end of the day. It's not just about the summative assessment. It's about, like continuously, they know the improvement from week 1 to week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. So we must be able to basically give some feedback so that they're able to see themselves that they're actually improving. Or we can actually give them some confidence so that they feel like they are actually improving. So for teachers, ourselves, this is to reflect on and to improve our teaching practices. And this is very important because when you do this assessment, if, let's say, for example, the half class is actually not doing well, it will reflect to us and say that, okay, how can I do better to improve the content, or to improve the activities, or to lower down my sorry, that was some sound from that. Okay, or whether the questions that we ask in our assignment, perhaps is it like can the students actually understand? So these are the reflections, maybe not for the current students that we're teaching, but maybe for future students, yeah, so that we can improve for every semester when we teach. For the departments, this is when we can use that to refine our current curriculum during curriculum review, right? So there are two types. Actually, there are only two types of assessment, which is formative, okay, and summative. We put alternative assessment there is actually just to show you, okay, why we have alternative assessment to replace our final exam. Now, the difference between formative and summative. In formative exam, formative assessment, right, it occurs before or during instruction, which means that when you do assessment for formative, like let's say for your class is about from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, all right? So the formative assessment is when you ask certain questions or certain assessment activities before the class start, before 8 o'clock that day, or between 8 to 10 a.m. during the classes. As opposed to summative assessment, it occurs after instruction, which is after the class. If you want to ask them about the whole topic, for example, corporate branding, so you ask them after the class. So you have some quiz or something like that, just to, as a summative, as a summary of the thing that you actually thought. Summative assessment also is something that you can talk about when you assess them at the end of the semester. Yeah, and formative assessment is assessment for learning. Okay, you assess them so that they be able to learn more. Whereas for summative assessment is the assessments of learning, whether they learn well, whether they actually capture what they have learned, right? Whether they can score A whether they understand every concept and be applied, you can apply them in various problems that you give them. And then feedback. The kind of feedback was different for formative and summative. So for formative, the feedback is descriptive, more about qualitative. Yeah. Descriptive, and then you tell them what to improve, tell them what went wrong, okay, and then how can you give them some constructive criticism, for example, all right, and there's the discussions that you do with them. Whereas for summative is evaluative feedback, so which means that sometimes, mostly summative assessment is actually one way, so it's just telling you, okay, this is what you have done, and that's it, all right. And formative assessment normally informal, and summative is mostly formal. So formative is informal, summative is formal. Examples you can see here that for formative quiz, writing essays, drawing, and so on, and you can see that summative assessment, this is usually at the end of the semester, the end of the topic, or you can see the national or international exam. This is when you do your SPM or your A-level and so on. All right, so these are the kind of feedback in teaching and learning. So if you take a look at the formative assessment, it's a feed forward for improvement. So we talk about the improvement, right? Whereas summative is feed backward on achievement, what you have achieved. Okay, what did you improve and what you have achieved. So that's actually different. So you can see the formative is that how can they improve while they're studying, okay? And whereas the summative is how well they are doing on what they have done. So it's basically pass on the pass. So you can see that final exam is a summative exam. It's a summative assessment. And summative feedback will not make students able to use the feedback to improve their works anymore. That's why you can see the final exam when they got A or B or C. So they can't actually do anything except for that if they want to resit for your paper. But that's not much. So usually summative assessment is just that, right? We come back to the method of assessment just now. We have self-assessment, peer assessment, group-based assessment, performance, and portfolio. So this is what we call alternative assessment. So when you talk about your final exam, now some faculty, you have professional bodies, so you cannot run away from the final exam. You have to do the online final exam anyway. At the end of the day, you have to do the open book exam. So that one, you cannot do anything, but we do encourage all other lecturers, all other courses that does not bound from these accreditation bodies or professional bodies to actually do this alternative assessment. So you can choose from whichever methods that we have here, whichever dimensions that you want to have here. There are questions before they're saying that, can you do that alternative assessment as group work? The question, the answer that I received from QMAC, it says that there's no problem if you want to do the group assessment as long as the questions and everything has been vetted at the faculty level. You have a peer you have a they call it peer evaluation or something like that to make sure that everybody equally distributes same kind of balanced efforts, and as long as they actually measure the CLO. Okay, that would be the answer. So, but it depends on the faculty, because certain faculty, they have their own guideline for that part of assessment. So you have to refer back to your faculty to make sure that you are actually in line with everybody else at the faculty. Okay. Ask me on the assessment, can we use the standard rubric? Yes, we can use the standard rubric, of course. We can use the standard rubric, but then it depends on whether it's actually measure summations. If you talk about the alternative assessment, so whether it actually summarize the whole knowledge that they have. You see, the different, I want to show you this, the different of that between when you do your assessment is this one. This is the part that we are going to replace with the alternative. Okay, not so much on the continuous. I think the continuous assessment is rather, almost the same with what you do, because the submission of assignment and everything, the video and everything, presentation can be done online. But what I'm talking about here is actually at the final examination. This is when you talk about, because continuous assessment is normally known as formative, whereas the final examination, this is the part where you talk about the summative. Okay, so we need to have the assessment, okay, the assessment that summarizes the whole understanding of the course. So the activity that you use, okay, all the using the 5 dimensions, basically summarizes the whole course for the students. So if you take a look at this case, for this particular um, lecturer, so you can see that this 60%. Okay, remember, assessments of weightage cannot be changed. If 60-40, you have to keep that. Okay, so the activity here is still there. For example, this lecturer has in-class tests, 10%, online quiz 10%, assignment 20%, video presentation 20%. And then for the final examination, this lecturer put case study report, okay, so in order for her to replace the online final examination. So to summarize, summative assessment, she used case study report, 20%, and she used take-home exam, 20%, all right? So you can also do many other kind of activities ranging from this part of methods, right? So alternative assessment is also called authentic assessment and comprehensive assessment. So what you can do is that you can download this book from this. Actually, if you Google, there's already there at the ResearchGate, you know. So I think the Tafara has already made it available to be downloaded from ResearchGate, so you can go there. So the book is actually, the title is Redesigning Assessment for Holistic Learning, a quick guide for higher education. There's about, I think about 20 cases on the alternative assessment. So it's a real case study, so you can actually take a look and learn from there, right? So let's take a look at the traditional versus alternative assessment. So traditionally, you can see that a lot of assessment is actually one-shot test. So if the students do badly, that's it. You know, you cannot, you know, the students already felt like sometimes they become demotivated because they already find that, you know, they don't have what do you call it, motivations anymore to proceed because they find that, okay, that's it, one test, I'm down, and that's it. But for the alternative assessment, it's better because it's continuous. You can do longitudinal assessment. For example, if you do portfolio, you can start. You can tell them at the first week. You say that, okay, the assessments I'm going to give for you is actually the portfolio, which means that is the capture a moment of every learning activities, learning projects that you do from week 1 until week 13, for example, and then you have to submit by week 14. So it's like a continuous, and you can see that there will be changes for the students. You can see that the way they write, or maybe sometimes what I do is that I do a journal submission. Okay, so every week they have to write a journal, a reflections of what they actually learn. Okay, or if you talk about management, they can also write a journal about, for example, positive leadership, right? How to become a more positive. Okay, for example, so every week they have to write about their thoughts about a positive leader. So we can see that every week there will be some sort of like a developments with the way they write, the way they think, because they will start to really, they will start to read and learn every single week, isn't it? So that would be very interesting to do that. And in traditional assessment, there will be no feedback provided to learners. Yep. They give you one assignment and that's it. You don't give them back. You don't tell them whether the assignment is actually good or not. So there's no way for them to improve. But the attentive assessment, you can give feedback provided to learners. In traditional assessment, there will be time exam. For alternative, normally the exam is a take-home exam, not really like you have to be there, like sit there, like traditional exam that we always did at the exam hall. Okay, and the best part about this that I think very important is actually here. I see traditional versus alternative. The traditional way is like we use a standardized test. So we think that everyone is equal. So in every classes we give them. Okay, sorry, there's a little bit of renovations here in edX, so I'm not sure. What is that? Okay, all right. Sorry, guys. There's a drilling thing in our office, so I'm sorry about that. I'm really sorry about that. Kenapa? Okay, I'm really sorry about the noise, and I will try to finish this as quickly as possible, and I will try to keep it simple so that we'll be able to beat that sound. Okay, so this is the 5 dimensions that we have. Just think about it, just take a look at it, and I think you might want to explore, because I'm not going to go through each assessment. And then this is the summary of that. So the formative is a continuous assessment. The summative is a final assessment. So the final assessment is the thing that you want to replace with alternative assessments, which is we do not want to do the final examination anymore. I mean, for those who are able to not do the final examination, because in my faculty and my subject, I have to do final examination because of the professional bodies, so it's fine. But for others, you can do alternative assessment. It's very, very encouraged for you to do that. For alternative assessment, you need approval of the vetting committee. So each faculty will have their own SOP. So some faculty, they will require you to submit your alternative assessment by week 4. So you have to do that, and then it has to be vetted by your department, by your peers, and then after that, then only you can actually do that. Okay, Dr. Hazina asks, I have 100 plus students, so it's hard to do weekly assessment or journal as you have mentioned. Is there a suggestion to do alternative assessment for larger class subject courses? This is the part when you do a group work. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure for 100 plus students, because I have more than 100 students. Well, this semester I will have 200. So what I do is that I would do group work. Group work means group assessment at the end of the day. So I don't do weekly. For weekly, what I do is that I would do a case study, but for every week, the case study, okay, it will be different groups who have to perform. So which means that in one class, let's say I have like 6 tutorials, so there's only one group that will present on their findings. So that in one week, I can only assess about 6 case studies. I mean 6 presentations. That's all. So you don't have to do it, every week for all 200 students to submit to you. Otherwise, it would be very, very difficult. Yeah. So I do understand that. All right. Again, I would like to say that remember, you cannot change the weightage. Okay, must follow the approved weightage. Otherwise, you have to need to get some approval from the Senate. Yeah. And the final summative assessment may be conducted at any time at the end of the semester. Okay, which means that let's say, for example, you completed all your core teaching elements at week 13, for example. So in the week 14, you can already start to give them that case study or whatever that actually replace as your attentive assessment, and then you ask them about perhaps 1 week or 2 weeks to complete them. And then you can use them. You can actually ask them to submit through Spectrum, because that will be our online, our official platform. Or you can actually use Microsoft Teams as well, as long as you capture that and put it on Spectrum at the end of the day. Okay. And the most important thing is that you can actually, you must follow guidelines, and it has to, whatever that you do, it has to be constructively aligned to your CLO at the end of the day. Okay, and it has to be matched with the previous final examination that you have. So it has to be equivalent to that, whatever activities that you want to do. So now you have to refer back to your form number 3, borang 3. Okay, and more discussions on this you can find from page 3 to 5 in our guideline. There are more resources actually. If you go to edec.um.edu.my, you can have more resources in terms of the guidelines, books that you can read. In fact, this book also, the one that I mentioned just now, you can also get from our website. And then we have many videos, contents that you can learn. All right, the trainings videos and so on, and also the infographics. So do visit edX website for more information. Okay, I have to finish early because I want to give more time for the Q&A sessions, and hopefully that there's no drilling sounds. Okay, and okay, we need your feedback. So perhaps really appreciate that you can actually go to our feedback and give your feedback in our. I will put the feedback in our chat room, and we will hope that you can actually give more comments on that. So thank you so much. So I will wait for your question. I will wait for your questions, and I think Umu, can you please forward the feedback link at the chat room, please? All right. And if you have any question, you can unmute your mic, and you can also write at the chat room. Thank you. Any question? Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, we have question from Dr. Jega. Okay, let me see. So online quiz cannot be used for formative. No, we can. We can use online quiz for formative, because it doesn't mean that because online quiz can be used for both formative and summative depending on the content that you ask the students. If you ask the students just at that particular topic so that they can actually improve on their learning after that, then that would be a formative assessment. You can put it as your continuous assessment, not as a summative assessment. So it depends on the content and how the way you actually ask the question. Yeah. In my Spectrum, I have materials used during last sessions, how to archive them to have clean page. I think the archive is already automatic. But however, the past materials that you put, you have to delete them manually. Okay. But if you want more assurance for that, no, I think the archive is actually already automatic. So you have to delete all the contents on your own to have the clean page for that. Yep. Assalamualaikum. If I use Microsoft Teams for 1 week, for week 1 to week 14, all my training assignment and student submission, can this be auto-synchronous? Yep. I am not sure. Okay. Actually, we have discussed this with PTM, but however, there is no auto integrated with our Microsoft Teams and Spectrum, because these are two different platforms. Because Spectrum is on our own from our own server, whereas Microsoft Teams is owned by Microsoft. So I'm not sure in the future we may have that, but currently we do not have. I'm so sorry, Dr. Azni. Oh yes, thank you, thank you, Dr. Shina. Yeah, you can also back up the content if just in case before you don't want to delete everything. All right. Okay. Anyone else? Any questions on assessment? Well, to share with you, Dr. Azlina, yes, talking about students, I do have, normally I have almost 200 students in one semester. And it's sometimes, yes, it's very hard, when it comes to do the want to evaluate their work. So that's why what I do is that when I do the short video, for example, just now, I ask them, and I really limit the length of video that they have to send to me. So I said that there's only 3 minutes. That's it. In fact, the presentation also, I would say that you talk, you summarize, but not more than 5 minutes for each group. So time is actually the essence sometimes. And then the length of the report that they have to send you. Don't ask them to send like maybe perhaps 20 or 30 pages of kind of assignment. Try to limit it to maybe perhaps 3 pages. It sounds like maybe, okay, too little, but ask them to write 3 pages, but a very comprehensive one. So you don't have a headache to read them because they're very concise and they're accurate. And in fact, I think there will be less room for plagiarism because, you require them to write from their heart. So maybe perhaps 1 page. For example, if the journal that I asked them to do, I asked them to write about half a page or reflections, half a page, not more than that. Maybe 1 paragraph, that's it. So that, it'll be easier for me to review at the end of the day and to give feedback. Okay? So that's the tips. Yeah. If you don't have any other questions, so I would like to say thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being in this webinar, and I hope that I do give you I give you some informations. So there is some take-home information that you had for today. Dr. Azni, I usually ask the students to send the link for the video instead of asking them to send the video itself. This way is easier to access, correct? Yeah. Usually I will ask them to write the link in the report so I can actually access them. Thank you, Dr. Azni, for that sharing. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, if you don't have any question or if you want to share some of your methods, also you can do that here. I mean, we would like to, EdTech also would like to hear that, and then perhaps we can learn from each other. So yeah, you can share with me as well. But if you don't, if you have any other questions, you can write to edec@um.edu.my, or you can email me personally, Safiah@um.edu.my. And with that, if you don't have any more, oh yeah, I am from law faculty and we need to know if the student understood the issue comprehensively. What would be your suggestion? Dr. Muhammad Irshadul, I'm not sure. Can you elaborate your question, please? What do you mean that how to make sure that they understand the issue comprehensively? So, what do you want them to what do you want them to have actually, Dr. Irshadul? Actually, it would be easier if you use your mic and speak to me. Because you have to do assessment if you want them to know comprehensively. Perhaps you can do role play and see whether they actually be able to solve the problems. Okay, ask one student to act as a problem, and then the other students have to give some solutions to that. If you talk about mediation, for example, you ask them to do role play. You give them a situation, like a situation, and ask them to do the role play and see whether they can actually do something on that. Or you can actually also do a case study and ask them to implement the theory or any other materials that you have, for example. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for the shadow to write. No, I can't hear you actually. Wait, yeah. Yeah, I cannot hear you actually. Dr. Ishadul. Can anybody else hear Dr. Ishadul, or is it only me that have this problem? Okay, thank you, Dr. Retna. So you also cannot hear Dr. Ishadul, right? Okay, all right. So Dr. Ishadul, perhaps you can use your unmute your mic, I think. Maybe your mic is mute. Because what I understand is that when you talk about understood the issue comprehensively, so I think it would be like, be able to demonstrate the issue, or like, whether they can apply. So that is something that is very subjective. So it depends on what you want the students to have to achieve at the end of the day. For example, for me, in my subject, I would like them to know how to think to suggest the strategic directions for the company. So what I do is that I ask them to take a look at one company, for example, AirAsia. Okay, study the company, right, and then tell me what AirAsia should do next. Okay, in the future. So where is the strategic directions for AirAsia for the next 5 years? But they have to do a lot of calculations. They have to do a lot of auditing before they can actually suggest. So I ask them to apply the real case examples, the real companies. All right. So Dr. Ishado said that when they do group assignment, do you advise to give them the same marks? Mm, I would say I will give them the same marks because there's a collective efforts. Okay, but you can also do peer assessment, which means that normally some people what they do every time when you give when you give the assignment, you also give them this one form. We call it a peer assessment. So they will write their friend's name, okay, and then they will tick their marks. For example, the efforts of this person. For example, Ahmad. So he writes Ahmad. So effort Ahmad is what, 10, for example. Communication 10, contribution 10, whatever. Okay, and if let's say and then you have to do and you have to do the calculation and then see who is actually contributing less, who is actually contributing more, and with that, then you know how to give, how you can actually adjust their marks, not according to the group. Study LM students, and some of them come from very different background and from different countries or part of Malaysia. Yeah, then that's why they have to be allocated in the group so that they can learn from each other, collective efforts. Just to inquire, you did mention about giving video assignments. Will there be limit? Yes, there will be limited capacity in Spectrum. So what you do is that you ask them to upload on YouTube, or if you have a Facebook group, upload on Facebook group. Okay, and then ask them to give the link in YouTube assignment. For example, like you put on the forum and then you ask them to put all the link there. What I do myself, I ask them to upload on Microsoft Teams because I would do a special Teams for the class. So every assignment, I ask them to upload there. And for videos also they can upload because for Microsoft OneDrive, we have 1 terabyte, if I'm not mistaken. So you can save up to 1 terabyte videos, files. Group assignment, you will have to give same mark, but unless you can divide it group, so there is a group mark and individual mark. For written project presentation mark, the group mark for teamwork, etc. I used that for my undergrad program. Yes, where I get individual mark for my own work and a group mark to show us working together. Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Retna. That's very insightful. Thank you so much for your sharing. Do EDEC have standard peer assessment rubric? We do not have the standard peer assessment rubric in EDEC. Usually the faculty has. But also you can actually create one for yourself. I think the faculty has, maybe you can check. Yeah, Dr. Hazina? Yeah. Welcome, Dr. Abby. Welcome, Dr. Ratna. My concern is I know the students from some group with some active members and some professional. The student form some groups with some active member and some professional. Okay, then in that case, you may have to form the group under your directions, which means that you are the one that sets up the group, not the students set up the group on their own. So that could be one of the way to do that earlier. So you identify at the first week, you identify their background. So usually what I do, I write a paper and then I give them in class. I mean, usually last time it was in a physical class, and I ask them to write their background. What do they work? Okay, what is their professional background? What is their educational background? So that I would know a bit of their background profiling so that I'll be able. So with that information, you can actually allocate the group members for them. So rather than they do that themselves. Yes, we can only confirm the group in the 3rd week. Sometimes no, I confirm in the 2nd week. I don't. If there is someone is actually drop or something, what I do is that I will replace. I will adjust back. Okay, so it's it's easier to complete your group formations as early as possible so that the students can actually start working. So that's what I do. I hope I answered your question, Dr. Ishadu. So if that's the correct thing. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Ishadu, for your questions. Is there any other questions? I know the session is supposed to be up to 12 o'clock, but I completed earlier. Actually, we give a way for the Q&A session. And also, I need to I need to avoid from the drilling sounds to happen again. So that's why. But anyway, in EDHEC, I would like to encourage you to actually access to our website, okay, to our page, to get more information, especially on learning, on teaching and learning. And then please do check on our upcoming trainings because most of them actually will help you to improve on your, or to clear your doubts in terms of assessments or in terms of teaching, teaching and learning online, using Microsoft Teams, using Spectrum. Because sometimes you say Spectrums, you just use it, but there's a lot of buttons that actually that we do not know. I sometimes myself do not know, and sometimes I have to attend the Spectrum clinics myself. So I do encourage you to do that. Always improve on our skills from time to time, and EDHEC will be here to assist all of academicians in UM to help you to do better. So fill up our feedback form. I hope that is already there, the link. Okay, if it's not, I'm going to give it to you now. Hopefully, because I'm afraid if Umu forgot to put it. Okay, so I'm going to put it here now. Okay, and please go there and get your feedback, and we will try to improve. We will improve our contents for the next future. So thank you so much. I hope everyone has a good day. I hope everyone have some benefits from today's webinar. Thank you so much, and hope that everyone have a good day. And thank you, Prof. Kamila. And I think if we have a QMAC representative here today, also thank you so much if you're here, and thank you so much for the support. And we're going to have another sessions tomorrow with Dr. Azza. If you miss some of the information that you need to know more, you can actually also join Dr. Azza's session tomorrow. Thank you so much. Bye. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning and thank you so much. Bye.